can trust me. I'm not going to give you I'm not going to mislead you. I'm a lawman.
But they're going to have this fight, Chris.
No, they're not.
Well,
no, hold on. I'm not going to discuss that with you because I've just said the fight doesn't happen.
Nobody seems to mention it is also a factor. Conor Benn being the younger man at his prime, yeah?
I don't know if I would say unhealthy. I mean, he was extremely strong.
Chris Eubank Sr. has publicly expressed his strong opposition to the fight between his son Chris Eubank Jr. and fellow British boxer Conor Benn, particularly under the conditions that were originally outlined. His primary concern centers around the contracted weight of 157 lbs, a catch weight well below Eubank Jr.'s natural fighting weight. Eubank Sr. emphasized that he does not and will not allow his son to drop to such a low weight. Citing serious health risks, he believes that asking a fully grown and physically mature middleweight or super middleweight like Eubank Jr. to cut down to 157 lbs could endanger his well-being, particularly due to the effects of dehydration and loss of strength, which are common risks when fighters drastically cut weight. If you likes this video, please subscribe, punch Vista, and click the bell icon for more latest and interesting videos.
Yeah. If he's fighting at 168, you go ahead and do what, but you cannot come down to 160. I will not allow that. I will not allow it, or let me rephrase it. May the divine providence not allow that fight to ever happen. Okay? You are to stay at 168. And, Matchroom, let Conor go and have his illustrious career here in the United Kingdom and then in the United States, because he beats them all. That's how fantastic I think he is. I've always backed that young man. I've always backed you, Conor. I've always backed you. Okay? You're sensible. If it's true that you've said things about me which are not complimentary, I don't mind.
Chris Eubank Sr. has attributed the original cancellation of the fight between Conor Benn and his son Chris Eubank Jr. to what he calls divine intervention, suggesting that fate or a higher power stepped in to prevent an event that wasn't meant to happen. Eubank Sr. emphasized his role in halting the fight the first time, stating that as a father and a former world champion with first-hand experience, he would continue to speak out and intervene if necessary. While he respects Conor Benn's talents and determination, Eubank Sr. raised concerns about Benn's circle, suggesting that those around him may be more focused on business and profit than on his long-term well-being. Eubank Sr.'s message is clear. While he acknowledges Benn's skill, his priority will always be his son's safety, and he cannot support a fight that he believes jeopardizes that. His stance reflects a deep concern for what he perceives as the potential risks to both fighters, particularly in this high-stakes bout.
Okay, you can trust me. Yeah, you've seen me get up in a fight I can't win and walk back into the fire. You can trust me. I'm not going to give you I'm not going to mislead you. I'm a lawman.
But they're going to have this fight, Chris.
No, they're not.
Well,
no, hold on. I'm not going to discuss that with you because I've just said the fight doesn't happen.
You can't.
It's finished.
You can't stop it.
Again, I stopped it the first time. But you want me to qualify that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the fight was made, I said that fight is not happening. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything again up until the day of the fight, where it was cancelled the day before. So let's do the same thing again. Fine.
Chris Eubank Sr. has always been a figure of immense discipline and control in his son's life, particularly in Eubank Jr.'s boxing career. His strict approach was never just about teaching the fundamentals of the sport, but about molding his son into a fighter who adhered to his vision of excellence. Eubank Sr. instilled in Jr. a sense of purpose, focus, and commitment, shaping him with a specific style and philosophy that he believed would lead to greatness. Now reflecting on the current state of the sport, Eubank Sr. is vocal about his discontent. He points out the problems with the promotional culture that prioritizes big names, Over genuine abilities, he highlights how fights have become about hype rather than substance. His frustration with Eubank, Drandis' career, becomes clear when he says, "I trained you, I brought you up in this boxing, and I gave you an extraordinary start." Eubank Sr. is adamant that Junior's natural talent was something special, yet the shift in style influenced by Roy Jones Jr. has watered it down. He doesn't mince words, calling Junior's transformation into an ordinary fighter, because it no longer reflects the potential he once saw in him. Eubank Sr. is blunt. This isn't just about the fight. It's about his son returning to what made him.
Would the public be interested in such a fight? Unfortunately, because promoters have been constantly rinsing the public with these fights, which actually are about names, not about abilities. So, they would take an interest in this fight. I think it's okay for me to actually say this. I trained you. I brought you up in this boxing. I gave you an extraordinary start. That is based on your ability to box. The style that you had was incredible.
Great Eubank Jr. has always been candid about the complexities of his relationship with his father. Chris Eubank, growing up under the watchful eye of his father Eubank Jr., often felt the weight of his father's strict discipline and high expectations. He reveals how his father's intense control over his life, especially in his formative years, shaped much of his behavior. Eubank Jr. admits that this constant pressure to perform and conform both in and out of the ring often led to frustration and rebellion. His struggles in school were partly the result of this environment, as the strictness of his father's approach left little room for self-expression or the normal development of a young person. Despite the challenges, Eubank Jr. acknowledges that his father played a pivotal role in shaping his career and his boxing style. Yet there's an underlying sense of conflict when Eubank Jr. reflects on his father's ongoing interference in his life, even as an adult. Eubank Jr. feels his father's influence lingering, especially when Chris Eubanks claims ownership of his son's success, saying he trained him to become the man he is today. This claim, while a testament to his father's influence, also serves as a reminder that Eubank Jr. has never fully been able to escape his father's shadow, while grateful for the foundation. His father provided. Eubank Jr. also longs for autonomy, a space where he can define himself without the constant reminder of his father's control over his destiny.
I don't know if I would say unhealthy. I mean, he was extremely strict. I got away with nothing. If I messed up in school, if I didn't do a chore, if I got into a fight with my brothers, there was physical punishment, whether it was a belt, whether it was a cane, whether it was, a slap. Back then, in the 90s, that was how you disciplined your kids. So that is where my fear obviously originated from, having to deal with that. But again, that type of punishment and that type of upbringing, that type of strictness, it made me who I am today. It prepared me for the brutality of the sport of boxing.
Chris Eubank Sr. has always been a vocal figure in his son's career, often expressing his belief that Eubank Jr. could have been one of the greatest in boxing. Reflecting on their past, together Eubank Sr. is filled with disappointment, feeling that his son's career fell short of its potential due to a lack of adherence to the guidance he provided. He believes that had Eubank Jr. followed the training regimen and the boxing philosophy he instilled in him, he would have emerged as a truly dominant force in the sport. Eubank Sr. has been clear about his frustration, stating that the decision to depart from the path he had laid out was a major factor in his son's stagnation as a fighter for Eubanks. It's not just about missed victories or titles, but about the loss of the potential greatness he saw in his son. His disappointment is rooted in the belief that the unique style and strategy he had taught his son were tailored for success, but that Eubank Jr.'s failure to fully embrace those lessons led to what he views as underachievement. Eubank Sr. stresses that the key to success in boxing is discipline, trust in one's training, and the willingness to absorb the wisdom of experience, qualities he feels Eubank Jr. neglected, ultimately hindering him from becoming the fighter he could have been.
If you don't listen, you're gonna feel.
So now he's not listening when you're winning. He can't win.
He
again.
has
He
never.
can't win now, can
he
he?
hasn't. Sorry, he has never listened.
Make your mind up, Chris. 1 minute. he
No,
has you in
I've
the
made up
corner.
my mind. You're just hearing it for the first time. He's
Okay.
never listened. He's my son. I know what he is.
I know you know better than all of us.
My son could have been a tremendous fighter. He electrified me when watching him.
I
Again,
agree on that, but he hasn't
But
been, has he?
because he doesn't listen, and when you don't listen, okay, you have to.
Chris Eubank Sr. has reflected on his past actions, acknowledging his mistakes and how he raised his children, particularly Eubank Jr. In a candid admission, Eubank Sr. expressed regret over his approach to parenting, realizing that his strict and controlling nature may have caused strain in his relationship with his biological children. This acknowledgement of past errors has added depth to his reflections on his son's career and their personal bond. Eubank Sr. has openly stated that his biggest regret is not nurturing a more open and understanding relationship with Eubank Jr., something that could have led to a different dynamic between them both in and outside the ring. The father-son relationship became even more complicated after their highly publicized clash, especially following Eubank Jr. MS' decision to forge his own path in boxing, separate from his father's tutelage. The fight between them wasn't just physical, but emotional, a battle for autonomy and respect. Eubank Jr. sought to distance himself from his father's shadow, wanting to carve out his own identity in the sport. This move was seen as a betrayal by Eubank Sr., who believed that his son had the potential to be great if he had stuck to the principles and strategies he had taught him despite the disagreements. Eubank Sr. has always been vocal about his desire for his son to succeed. Even if their relationship has been tumultuous, his reflections on the past, especially on their rocky relationship, suggest that he wishes things had been different, perhaps hoping that with a more balanced approach, they could have avoided the fallout that ultimately shaped both their careers.
What's the biggest thing you've been wrong about in the last year?
That's funny. My biological children. Move on.
What have you been wrong about with your biological
You asked me the question, I gave you the answer. That's private. Move on.
What's your biggest regret?
My son asked me, Sebastian, he said to me, Dad, we were in Malibu. He said, Dad, let's go and smoke a spliff together and walk around the block. Let's walk around the block and smoke a spliff together. The greatest offer of my life I turned down because I was broke. I did something unspeakable.
What was the unspeakable thing you did?
Not your business. How dare you? If I
Don't ask, you don't get.
You should know. It's called discernment. I've brought you close enough for you to understand. Be careful to question me, young man. Know your place.
Charles, an experienced trainer with a long history of working with fighters, recently shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, aligning with Chris Eubanks' near concerns. Charles believes that the factors Eubank Sr. highlighted, such as age, weight, and overall prime condition, are crucial to understanding the dynamics of the fight. As a trainer, Charles emphasized that Conor Benn's youth and being in the peak of his career could play a significant role in this battle. The age difference between Benn and Eubank Jr. is a real factor. With Benn being the younger, more explosive fighter at the height of his physical abilities, Charles further noted that Benn's aggressive fighting style, reminiscent of his father Nigel, could pose a unique challenge his ability to press forward with. Relentless pressure and determination could overwhelm Eubank Jr., especially if his opponent isn't fully prepared for such an onslaught. Although Chris Eubank Jr. may have the advantage of being the bigger fighter, Charles pointed out that this alone wouldn't guarantee victory. Eubank Jr.'s physical advantages are contingent on whether he has been consistently maintaining the right lifestyle and discipline, which is a question that could influence the outcome. Ultimately, Charles described the fight as a 50-50 contest, underscoring the unpredictable nature of the bout. He emphasized that despite the advantages one fighter may have over the other,
as a trainer, somebody who's trained fighters for a long time, do you feel like that's going to be a big part of this fight? And do you feel like it's a bit dangerous for Chris?
Well, most definitely. If anyone should know, his father, Senior, he said his mind, and I second that opinion. That's a factor the weight is a factor. The age, nobody seems to mention, is also a factor. Conor Benn being the younger man at his prime, yeah? Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Ben, especially the way he fights like his father, very aggressive, yeah? And listen, if I'm gonna have to, I normally can't say to you, predict what I believe will happen. Christopher Jr. is the bigger man, granted. It depends. It depends. If he's been living the lifestyle, that's also a factor.
Boxing is always full of surprises. Frank Warren recently weighed in on the upcoming fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., acknowledging the public demand for the clash. Due to the historical rivalry between the two fighters, while he expressed a clear preference for Conor Benn to win, Warren also spoke candidly about the challenges the fight presents. Particularly regarding the weight difference, Warren noted that Benn's move up in weight could be a significant factor in how the fight plays out, highlighting the uncertainty of whether Benn can effectively give away the weight and still perform at his best. He pointed out that this aspect of the fight is crucial, as it could determine the outcome, especially given the physical advantages that Eubank Jr. might hold in terms of size and strength. Regarding the safety of the fight, Warren addressed Chris Eubank, stating that it's ultimately up to the fighter, teams, and the relevant boxing authorities to decide whether the bout should go ahead, not external opinions. Warren emphasized that while the fight may not be the best fight in terms of technical matchmaking, it is one that the public is eager to see, and that's what's driving the business around.
So, Frank, you've made it clear that you'd like to see Conor Benn knock out Chris Eubank Jr. You've made it clear who you want to see win that fight. How do you actually see the fight playing out, and what have you made of Chris Eubank, the way that he's carried himself in the build-up?
First of all, we all talk about the best fight and the best. That's not the best fight and the best, but it's a fight. There's a demand for it from the public because of their history. So that's why it's selling so well and doing so much business. How do I see it playing out? I don't know if Conor can give away the weight. I don't know. I hope he can.
Do you agree with Chris Eubank Sr. where he says that the fight is unsafe to make due to the weight?
That's up to his teams to decide that. It's up to the boxing board of control. That's not up to me.
Conor Benn has been vocal about the historic nature of his upcoming fight with Chris Eubank Jr., acknowledging the deep roots their families share in British boxing. He recognizes that this is the first time in history that two fathers and their sons have faced off in such a high-profile match. This fight appeals to multiple generations, the young, the middle-aged, and the older fans, who remember the intense clashes of their fathers. Despite the historical significance and public interest, Conor Benn emphasizes that for him, this is ultimately just another fight. He doesn't let the magnitude or the pressure of the occasion get to him. His focus is solely on the task at hand, defeating Chris Eubank. Junior Benn's mindset is clear. He is determined to go into the ring and do a number on Eubank Jr.
It's the first fight like this has happened in history. Two fathers, sons. The fathers captivated the imagination of the British public, and this fight's doing exactly that. It appeals to so many generations, the young, the middle, the old. But ultimately, again, it's just a fight. I'm not really concerned about the magnitude of the fight. I'm going in there to do a number on him.
Disregarding the weight of the legacy and the emotions that come with it for Benn, it's about making a statement and proving himself as a fighter, separate from the history of his family's rivalry. That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next.